You are now tuned to BS3 Network. BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Welcome to another episode of Queen3 and King. I am your host, King Doc, along with my guest host, the Queens. And then we have special guest host today, which we will get to momentarily. We appreciate you tuning in. Today's episode is Snitches Get Stitches. Looks like we lost the season, Queen. Snitches Get Stitches. And the only part we left out is wind up in ditches, but you know the rest of it. You know the rest of it. So we're going to talk about that today, talk about some origins, talk about, how that's impacting our kids really and what we're teaching them. And is that giving us a problem with society and whatnot? And Mr. Freeman's, as he listed, I guess he's feeling fly today because he said his name is G Free.
G Free.
His list of recommendations is growing. So, he's the one who sent me something on this topic. So I'm trying to teach him some manners. If you suggest a topic, you're going to be on the show to talk about it. So that's where we at. So without further ado, let me get into our introductions and we'll start out north, almost in Van Augustine.
Dang.
We got the season queen. Boney Maroney's, Skinny Minnie, Coco, Darling Nikki, the Glam Mall Hub, Sell.
All right now.
What up, Queen?
Hey, y'all, not too much.
All right. Look like she got that. What is that, velvet? What is that, velvet?
What is that?
My sweatshirt because it's cold in here.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
That is velour.
Shame the devil.
It's spelled without the U.
Reebok Classics.
All right, and next, by way of Tulsa, out in Forney, Texas, she's on the northwest side of Forney. The educator queen, Meba, TT. Them edges ain't got the control that they need to have, so she rocking the Nike hat. What up, Queen?
These edges ain't edging tonight, so I put this hat on. Hey, bless your spirit. Good evening.
Yeah, she gonna have to. If ever anybody needed a studio with makeup people and hair people, I think that's
boy, you better quit that lie. This is all natural.
All right. Beat that back in.
Beat that back in.
Yeah. And next we have the baby queen, formerly known as Blake's mama. Now she is squarely in Bronx's corner. We can't get him off of social media pictures. Even though Blake is the athletic star. Baby queen, Mama Lee, talk to the people, queen.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mika.
Our first special guest, we got the gentleman behind the Philosophy Collection. You notice how I put that on there on the promo? I said the Philosophy Connection. Yeah, I'm trying to get me some producing credits or something shit. We got Mr. Gary Freeman, who again I'll credit with discussing this topic. How you doing, Mr. Freeman?
Oh, I'm blessed. Good to be here once again. Good to see you good people.
Wow, he almost went with his church testimony.
Yeah, he did. I almost brought in the Clark sisters.
Giving honor to God, to pastor, the first lady, and other members of the roster, and all the distinguished men and women of God. That
Hallelujah.
thank God.
Hallelujah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
you
Think about the
gotta-
goodness. What Frank used to
you got, you've got to interject that in this conversation somewhere. So
What?
it's best that we lead it off with it.
Yeah,
Hey,
might as
glory.
well. Might as well.
glory.
All right, and last but not least, we have the gentleman who put the BS in BS3, aka Trey. What up, Ben Sudderth, the number 3?
What's up, y'all? Thank you for having me on. I accepted once, twice, and 3 times.
Oh,
Oh,
welcome.
you're welcome once. You're welcome twice. You're welcome in the name of Jesus Christ.
Man, we done recycled some stuff, ain't we?
Won't you come? Again,
Right.
this episode of Snitches Get
Everyone that
Stitches
don't.
with our special guest host, Gary Freeman of the Philosophy Concepts and Ben Sudderth III of the Network and the Forecast and what is this? Creating Young Minds, CYM, right?
Yep. NFC Beast.
So the Ari and Daddy show, which he reviewed a movie on the Forecast last week that we should have saved for Ari and Daddy show. All right, we got some folks in the chat room already. The first thing I'll say, we got Facebook users say, "What's up, good people?"
Hey, Facebook user.
You are
Hey.
Facebook people, but let's see if we can try to put out some instructions here. So for you Facebook users, we want to give you credit for your comments. You are the best part of this show. So please give StreamYard permission to show your name in the chat. There's a link in the show description body of the post that you'll need to click, and it looks like so, StreamYard.com/Facebook. Please click that so we can give you credit. Otherwise, we don't know who in the hell you are. Thank you.
Oh, man.
It's Terry. Back, Terry. Back, Terry.
Oh, okay.
back,
Where's Terry?
All right, we got Craig Young in the building. So hello,
Hey,
fam. What's up,
Craig.
Kim?
Hey now.
Hey,
Then we got the
Craig.
Blue Streak Freak
Come on,
rocking
Theodora.
Mike
Hey, Theodora.
Theodora Harper. Look at her.
Come
She
on,
done got that.
Theodora.
She changed her profile picture. I think she do that for her. Look at her leaning to the side with it.
She
Like
be
she
waiting
don't
for
like this.
Tuesdays to do it for
Yeah,
us.
that's called lean with it, rock with it. All right, so let's get into this topic real quick. So again, we're talking about Stitches Get Stitches. And for those of you who don't know, which all of us should, but just in case, this is a phrase that's used by inner city communities that was intended to keep the police out of neighborhood business. Like NWA said best, F the police. Just kidding. The phrase was coined to remind those
Well.
seeking the help of the police
All right.
that to snitch would result in a beatdown. This term initially signified gang members in prison who were labeled as informers or tattletales, right? So snitch, rat, informant, all of it is seen as negative in our community. So without further ado, we're going to jump up to Gary Freeman's suggestion. And basically that suggestion came across and said this phrase, and I am paraphrasing, this phrase has become a large reason why violence and poverty permeate inner city communities. True or false is what we're going to discuss today. And let me see if I can find the exact reason why. Okay, so here is a scenario he sent to me.
Okay.
Let me remove this banner out of the way so we can see it well. Okay, so he sent this saying, my son just said his second grade teacher, okay, and understand this. I'm going to point out a problem before I go to Gary. So there's going to be a little segment.
Thank you, Lord.
My son just said his second grade teacher have him take names when she leaves the class of kids that's talking. Yep, I'm about class dojo her right now. She's setting my guy up to snitch. He was bragging. I said, no, son, don't agree to that job no more. Okay, first of all, you need to be in the class with your kid. That's it.
Right. On
Your
the front
sentence
row.
structure is so jacked up. I mean, we covered this in sixth
Don't
grade.
you do
English.
it.
I mean, I don't understand. But anyway, this is what kicked us off. So, Gary, talk to me, sir.
So the reason that I brought that up and I sent that to you was because, and I don't know if the young lady was that posted that was being serious or if it was just a joke. I assumed that it was serious. It looked serious to me. And so I was like, man, this is really an issue, the concept. And it's just not this concept, but there are several other concepts that really kind of have kind of infiltrated our culture, and they have become norm. And we don't necessarily, and we're raising kids and young people to believe these really weird scenarios are actually truth. And so, for instance, we suffer from the highest crime rate, not numbers. Of course, whites are because they share numbers. They actually commit more crimes than Black people.
Doubt.
But
That's
per capita in Black communities, our rates are much, much higher. But yet our conviction rates are lower because of this kind of no snitching policy. And so here we are being in a situation where we're in the worst scenario possible, and we're adopting ideas that are not beneficial to help us out of that worst case scenario. And I thought this was a perfect example of that. And like I said, if she is really teaching this to her kids, I was like, man, this is a damn shame. We gotta fix this. We gotta go in a different direction. We've got to let people know. We've got to raise our kids to understand that it's okay to protect to do what's right, because that's what it's about. It's about doing what's right.
Yeah.
And it's about having the kids around that actually have eyes that can actually help out a teacher or help out a policeman, help out the community, and so that criminals don't feel safe committing crimes in the presence of everybody that's involved, of everybody that's in ear or eye shot of it. So it was just kind of one of those things that's just that it just kind of upset me.
Yeah, it struck a chord, which it hit a nerve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna get some thoughts of the other hosts here today as well. We want your thoughts as well. Before I get into their thoughts, I want to acknowledge some people in the chat room. We got Aunt Weed in the building. She goes, "Hello, my beautiful family. How you doing?" And then we got the Knuckleheads Chronicles.
Here I go.
Yeah, we got to do something with him soon. Now, before I get into thoughts, Nikki, we'll start with you. Go down to the youngest queen, and then we'll go to Ben to finish us off. And just understand something. You don't have to agree with what we say. In fact, we may not even agree with each other. I don't know whether we're going to agree with everything that's being said with each other today or not. We don't roll that way. If anybody's been a guest on my show, they will tell you I don't prep them for what we're going to do. I don't want it that way. I want it authentic. Number one, I believe everybody I invite on the show is intelligent enough to be able to basically shoot from the hip, so to speak. They are thoughtful people, right? They are intelligent people. They've lived life. So I trust, that I can just hit them with whatever scenario, and then they'll give me how it is, right? So, but we don't have these discussions because we're trying to convince you of what we think. And again, it's for the sake of the conversation. We need to have the dialogue. That's more important than the agreement. Okay, so I just want to get that out there because, again, everybody may not agree, and you may not agree in the chat room, and we want to hear from you. All right, so again, Nikki, I'm going to post it. I'm going to pose it to you like this, so I can just kind of put it in a nice, neat package. The phrase that we are talking about, snitches get stitches, and that little pic that I just gave, and I'll give a little shot of it again, where she says her son was bragging that the second grade teacher got him writing down names, right? And she told me, don't do that job no more. Okay, so the phrase, this snitches get stitches has become a large reason why violence and poverty permeate inner city communities. Is that true or false? Is this a problem, Nikki?
I definitely think that it is a problem. And when Gary was speaking, I had a flashback of my own self when I was at Miller Road Baptist Church School.
Not your own self.
Yes.
Come on.
So it is. It's not good.
Okay.
But it's bad. It is. It's bad. People do that, and I don't know what is setting them up. I believe that it is setting them up for being talked about in school, in their classrooms too, as being a snitch. So
okay. So you don't think kids should be taught to tell?
No, I think that I do know that they should tell, but a lot of times we don't let them know that it's okay to tell if it's right, or if somebody did something wrong.
Okay. All right. Educator Queen, this ought to be hit different for you because this is a classroom situation, right? So what do we need to know? Is this just setting up our community to continue to have violence and poverty in our community, or are we teaching them right? Don't be snitching.
Well, first of all, I have a confession.
Mm-hmm.
I used to take names, and I didn't do it right. I wrote down the names of the people that I didn't like.
That's another aspect of this, though, isn't it?
Mm.
So
you was writing down your haters then.
Yeah. I was writing down my haters in the classroom.
And baby,
you know what?
They were sitting up against that wall at recess.
Yes. Hey, Trey. I'm on this slide, buddy. So I had to confess it so the Lord can forgive me now. But I think if we don't have parents reinforcing why, I think it's so important to put the why behind things. And I know as parents and as a TT and all this stuff, people are always like, you don't have to tell those kids why. You don't have to tell them kids why. But sometimes in situations, yes, you do. Mm-hmm. You tell in this situation because it is okay to share information because if they understand the right and the wrong behind it, they'll know when to say something and when not to say something. So to me, it's the importance of this is the why behind it.
Right. Okay. And I will say that I think it's important to always tell the why. It may be a situation where you don't have time to tell it right then and there. So you should establish a protocol that says, when I tell you to do something, do it. If we need to talk about it later, we can talk about it later, and I'll tell you why I'm asking you to do it. But sometimes it's for your safety. So if I give you an instruction, we ain't got time to have no damn conversation. Get it done, and we'll talk about it later. Okay. And Nikki, we're going to be circling back to you. I'm going to give you a name. When Mika started talking, it reminded me of why we got put out of Miller Road Baptist Church, the private school, because Nikki was taking names, and her taking names got us put out. So I'm going to let her tell that story in a minute. All right, Lily, is this why we got our communities, got violence and got poverty, and what's the deal? Should we be teaching them? You got kids.
Yeah, I think it's one of
snitches or not?
We snitch on the right thing. You have to redirect it because I think it becomes, I think we blur the lines of tattling when they're kids and snitching. So I 100% agree that we have to tell the why behind what we're saying, that in some situations it is absolutely necessary to tell. And it's absolutely something that you should do. And in other situations, like, okay, you don't have to, you ain't got to do that. Like, oh, he over here doing that. You know how kids can be like every little bitty thing. We don't have to do every little bitty thing, but it's important to explain the why behind when it's appropriate to tell and things like that.
All right, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think this is multifaceted because when my daughter,
spell it.
It don't matter. Look it up. Google is your best friend. But anyway. But as far as kids, if they're in other people's business, which I had this conversation quite often. Right now, but quite often. But if you in somebody else's business, then you don't need to tell what you've seen somebody else do when you're supposed to be looking down doing your work. Now, if it's something that is like detrimental to that kid, or if it's something where they could possibly be being abused, or something that's a danger, or a danger to you or to the class, then yeah, you definitely need to say something. And that's where this kind of see something, say something has. I think this is kind of over the past, I don't know, maybe couple of years.
No, you're right.
I don't really remember hearing this
shootings and stuff like that. Right,
exactly.
That's what they're trying to curb. Yeah,
right. But I think the other part of this is the whole snitches get stitches in the hip hop culture. This stuff is talked about all the time. Like, oh, you ratted, so now so now you on the outside looking in, or people snitch anyway though. So it's not as if it's not as if these dudes don't snitch. They snitch and they get better deals or whatever to get them out, whatever they can do to get out of jail. Because when you, the real truth is, when you in the situation, you never know what you're gonna do till it's you.
Yeah, let you be faced with Bubba getting you in the shower.
Watch TV.
When you getting you in the shower, when you trying to take your shower for lights out, and you all soaked up and shit, and Bubba walking there with 3 homeboys because he know, nigga, you can't beat all 4 of us. What you gonna do? I'm gonna do like Martin Lawrence. I'm gonna boo boo all over myself.
That is disgusting.
All right, I'm gonna get a couple of comments, and then Gary, I'm gonna circle back to you to see if any of these comments resonated with you or gave you additional thoughts on this after I give the seasoned queen to give her story. So Weeda said that that phrase is why the kids are being bullied. Keep quiet about it, okay? Because she thinks they snitching, so that's a valid point. CJ's in the building. He says, "What's good, y'all?" And then he goes, "Shit, I'm gonna tell my son to let it be known such and such is messing with him." You got to establish that credit with the teacher. So when my son want to swing, then it was put on record that my son went to the teacher for help and it wasn't handled appropriately. And that is a good point. You really need to get something on record. You know, it'll help you down the road. And then Craig Young said, "Ted,
he is absolutely stupid."
So Nikki got us put out of private school, Christian private school. Nikki, go ahead and tell them why. You take a name.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was in 4th grade.
Yeah, because I was in 2nd. Yeah.
I was in 4th grade, and the teacher at that time was Miss McCracken. She was from South Africa somewhere. But anyway, she would choose people to.
But she was a white lady, though.
Yeah, she was a white lady.
South Africa, but she was a white lady.
Right. But she would always pick somebody in the class to take names whenever she would leave the classroom. So on this particular day, she chose me to put, to do the names, take the names down or whatever. And I did. But as a joke, I put on there that Miss McCracken has been very, very bad today. And she held me after school, but some other kids had put things on their list too about her, but she never ever, of course, they was a different race, they was white, but of course she never did anything about what they said or anything. But the first time that I took names and I put a little something on there about her, she sent me to the office.
She gonna make an example out of you.
She didn't like that joke.
Make an example out of us. So
you said, "Oh, you got jokes." Huh?
Yeah. So when Aunt Thelma picked us up that day, I was late getting to the car, and she asked you and Chuck about where y'all knew where I was at or whatever. But anyway, they held me so long that Aunt Thelma had to come up to the inside of the office and look for me to see where I was at. And she gave Miss McCracken hell on that day. And so when Mama found out that it was the beginning of our school time in the Christian school, so we had to go to public school after that.
Yeah, and if you don't know my mama,
hallelujah.
That is not the one you want coming to your place of business. And so you want to know why me and Nikki look crazy, because our daddy, when he got mad at the church, at the pastor one day, because he made my mama upset. So again, this ain't this ain't no shocking story for y'all to understand that a pastor done made a black mama upset at church. That story happens from time to time, right? Well, in this scenario, she went home and told Richard Earl Dawkins about it, who didn't go to church that day. He stayed home and watched wrestling.
Not wrestling.
He had on the Superman shirt, some blue jeans, and some black dress loafers. And he went up to the church and told the pastor what for. So that's why this right here exists.
I'm picturing that in my head.
That's why this comment is real right there. We get it honest, okay? All right, we got Keisha LaShawn Walker in the building.
Hey now.
And we got We got glamour shots in the. That's what I'm
Come
gonna
on,
start
TT
calling it.
Shay.
That's glamour shots right there.
Hey,
She said,
Shayla.
"Hey, fam."
Hey.
All right, so Mr. Freeman, so you heard the comments about this, reason why violence and poverty, et cetera, et cetera. You heard some of the comments of the other hosts. Do you got anything to add to that?
It just goes back. I think everybody was kind of alluded to kind of the tattletale kind of aspect as children. And I think I was thinking more or less at what we were raising them to be as adults
as they get there. Okay.
And in particular, there are several rules and whatnot that I believe that we impose on children, and we don't really let them develop as young people as much as we are kind of pushing the agenda to groom them to be young criminals. The whole concept of don't tell, no snitching. That's if I have a crime. If me and my boy get into something, we break into a house and he gets caught, then it's okay. We did this crime together, but only he got caught. If he tells on me, then he's a snitch. That's the kind of the concept. It's kind of a criminal concept.
Yeah.
But yet we're bringing this to now. This is the criminal underworld that we're really talking about. But we've had so many people that have been cycled through that criminal underworld that it's now becoming part of our culture. And that's what's alarming, is that it's being part of who we're raising our kids to be, but we don't know necessarily where it's stemming from. And it's stemming from those continuous criminal cycle of people going in and out of jail, in and out of prison, and are bringing that stuff back to the neighborhood. And now we're raising kids with that same mentality. And so that's why I feel like it's so alarming. It's the same reason. It's the very same reason that I feel like Black people always have to settle disputes with a fist fight.
Oh.
It's the exact same reason. It's because that's how you handle that stuff in the penitentiary. Every dispute is handled physically, violently. And so you get enough people that cycle through that, and you bring that back to our community. Now you've basically created a cycle of violence in our community, and nobody actually is standing to say, okay, well, where does this come from? But this is where it comes from. And it all starts, and those are just two concepts. Those are just two ideas that I feel like are really permeating through our community that we really just need to put an end to. And the first way that we can put an end to it is just by talking about it, understanding where it came from, and then talk about how stupid it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think oh, go ahead. No,
you can go.
I was gonna say, I think the fist fighting has gotten escalated to guns. I mean, I remember. I mean, we would fight at school and it'd be done and over with. Tomorrow you'd be back eating lunch next to the same person. Like, yeah, you got whooped. I'm like, okay, and you just move on with your life. But now it's like, oh no, I got whooped. Now I need to go home. Now I need to come back to the school and shoot the school up, and that person not even there. I mean, so
you're used to getting whipped, ain't you, Trey?
No, I was talking about to the person that got.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Lily, you remember what you were gonna say?
Yeah, come correct. But when you brought about this topic, I actually thought about this interview that I listened to, and it was this lady. I can't remember her name, but she was talking about the Snitches Get Stitches concept. So it automatically brought me back to this. And she said that when she was a child, she was molested. And because of that phrase, she never said anything.
Wow, that's another good aspect of this.
Yes. And she said she never said anything because she was always brought about, you don't tell on nobody. You deal with it, accordingly. And she never said anything. And she said how the trauma of that situation carried into her adulthood and how she had to unpack that in her relationships, whether it be within family. She didn't trust nobody. Like she grew not to trust people because of that whole aspect. So you got to be real careful when you are teaching that aspect.
I bet that strikes a chord with several out there.
Oh,
And in fact, isn't it what they say in black households? How many times hey, what happened in this house? Don't be out there telling these folks none of our business.
But Tech, that makes me think: is this a cultural thing? Is everybody else being raised like this, or is it just us?
Oh no,
I
definitely think it's a culture thing.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely.
Paranormal activity coming in back there. You see that door open?
I did.
You see that door open? Hey, Gary, you don't want to see the camera go all crazy, and then all of a sudden it's pointing down at the carpet, and we hear a bunch of grunting and shit.
Leave him alone.
Like you wrestling with somebody.
Gary about to get up and be fighting the earth.
No, luckily I was looking out the window, so I knew that I was going to get that.
I saw the car pulling up too. Trust me, I'm ex-military. I sees it all now. We ain't, I might not can help you from here, but I say, Gary, run. All right, we got Sister Dawkins in the building.
Hey, Elder.
We're gonna have to have her on. The next time we have a spiritual talk, we're gonna have to have her on so she can sing an A and B selection for us and then cover the topic. All right, so Keisha said, Doc, please tell more of the story about your mom. I saw myself in that story, the way I cusses folks out. Woo. Hey, trust me, it's a lot of black mamas in there. In fact, that's one of the easiest ways to get black women on the Mad Minute on K104 or on the phone call that nephew Tommy do. You tell a black mama that her kids stinking or starting
dirty or socks dirty,
get all you want.
Keisha, before Ted goes to the next comment, I showed out so bad at school one day. My mama volunteered to be a substitute for 2 days. That lady crazy.
Yeah.
In fact, she's so crazy that if you act up and you happen to be in the tub, it don't matter. She'll jump in the tub with your ass and do what she got to do. If you don't believe that, ask Nikki. Mika. She found out what Jaws was, and Jaws hadn't been out in 30 years, and she found out Jaws still around there.
That lady don't care.
So Justin said, just us on the cultural situation and the snitching.
Yeah.
CJ, same thing.
Definitely.
And Glamour Shot said the same thing. It's our culture for sure. CJ said, Gary, run. Okay, that's what I'm talking. She said Richard Earl didn't go to church this Sunday or any other Sunday. Let's keep it real.
But he went up there in that Superman t-shirt. Was it a Superman t-shirt?
It was a Superman shirt. LaShawn said, damn, nigga. All right. So a quick comment here. I'm gonna start with Lily. I'm gonna start with Ben on this. Then I'll go to Lily and go around. Aren't all kids born snitches? Yes. Think about the youngest our kids are, and they come running in there.
Yeah.
And don't we start right then? Honestly,
stop telling.
Stop running in here.
Get in there and start telling.
Yeah. So Ben, ain't all kids born snitches?
Yeah. Once they see something they don't like or they see something somebody else has, he did that, and now I want that toy because that kid gone now.
Yeah, he took this. He did me. She looking at me. That's the one. She looking at me.
I'm not touching you.
Yeah.
And they don't understand.
And they don't understand when they siblings figure out that gets your nerves. They gonna keep going back to it.
Oh yeah.
I remember one of our cousins that live in the St. Louis area. I was visiting him, and his kids was in the background, and one of them, he kept doing like this, like I'm about to touch you.
I know which one it was.
He was getting ready to tell it. And then he ended up peaching him and held it. While he was screaming, he held it as long as he could, watching his daddy. And as soon as his daddy was about to look, he let go. So, they were some snitches too. All right, Lily, you ought to know this. Ain't all kids born snitches?
Oh, absolutely. Let me just say one name. Cadence Leia Vowels. Baby, she would tell it. She would tell it. And she would be the one. Oh, he looking at me, Mama. Tell Blake to stop looking at me. I'm like, girl, look the other way. Like, what are we talking about? But yes, kids are definitely born snitches.
Make kids born snitches or not?
Yes. And they stay stitches depending on how we respond as adults. If we get up and move every time they tell, they're going to keep snitching.
Yeah. So that may, because again, Gary is talking about what are we teaching them to grow up to be. So maybe we need to react differently to that.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what? That's what I was going to say. Because it seems like at this point, we don't like it in kids just simply because we're lazy.
That's exactly where I was going to go. That's exactly where I was going to go. You don't want to get up.
The issues that they see that are unfair, that are just not to their dislike or their distaste or whatever the case is. We don't want to respond to it. We don't want to get up and go see what they're talking about or go tell this other kid to stop doing this or whatever, simply because we lazy. And again, what signal does that send to our children?
Yeah, I'm sitting here watching Real Housewives of Atlanta, and your ass keep running in here telling me that little Earl in there pinching you or whatever. Go ahead, me.
But I think if we establish that as when they're little, because I've heard students even say that to teachers. I'm like, why didn't you say something to an adult when it comes to bullying or when it comes to this or when it comes to that? They're like, well, I said something and nobody ever did anything. Right. So I'm like looking at the adult like, now it's our fault.
Yeah, and really, if you back up, would it be a safe bet to say that if you looked up some of these school shootings and stuff like that, how many are exactly for that reason? You know, I was
90%.
Nobody did anything. I said something. Nobody said anything.
Nobody said a word.
Ben, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say. My mom used to say, "If you're not bleeding or ill,
I done heard that. I done heard that. Nikki, aren't kids born snitches? And
yes, they are. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter that snitches every day on the 2 older auntie and uncle. So they born that way.
All right. A couple of comments. Justin said, "Wait a minute. He went to church with a Superman t-shirt." I don't think you heard the outfit. A faded Superman t-shirt.
Let's get to the shoes.
Jeans.
Was church over? It was
some
still
black
insane.
dress loafers
still going.
And see, he's ex-military too. So his loafers, them black loafers, was shiny. They was the only thing shining on him because them pants was faded and their shirt was faded.
Scream.
Yeah.
Keisha said, once Hannah was born, I started whipping the other kids when she snitched. I couldn't whip my baby. Wow. Craig said Chris Epps and Pastor Dawkins, Demond Dawkins, would always tell deer on me. That's their grandmother. That's how Aunt Bessie. They would tell it on him. All right. So let me ask you this question, and I'm going to start with Gary. I'm going to start with you on this one. Is there a difference between tattling/snitching and telling? Is there a difference?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes a tattletale is just a nigga hating.
Yeah.
He just hating on his big brother. His big brother gets to go outside and he out there talking to a girl. Maybe he misses curfew by 5 minutes. You know, little brother in there, mama, he outside talking. He outside with some girl talking. Yeah. He's supposed to be in the house. It's 8 o'clock. So, you know, it could that's one. It depends on what it is.
Yeah, I sure would tell on Mika. She
so
missed curfew last night.
That's my take on it. Depends on what it is. Snitching again, going back and talking about, you know, what the criminal world, snitching is really kind of how do you get criminals off the street if you don't snitch? Most crimes are solved by people, eyewitnesses. Outside, you watch First 48. Outside of an eyewitness, they don't know who did what. It ain't until somebody comes up and says, I saw Ray now. He had a gun. I heard the loud bang. Then I saw Ray run by me. I didn't see him, but I saw him with the gun. Yeah. That's how they solve it.
And that all happened after you get some churches. And then that strawberry fancy is over. Yeah. I'm telling you.
And unfortunately, we support the no snitching until it's one of our family members that he ended up.
That part.
Now we want y'all to tell. Now we
on
want
Crime
y'all to
Stoppers with the dude from Fox 4. You know?
Yeah.
Justin on the dress code of my daddy that he can't get off. He ain't even paying attention to the topic no more. He said, God said, come as you are.
He did.
Keisha said, you're right, Mika, but Hannah still snitches everything that happens with her. I'm actually kind of glad about it because I found out an old pervert in our neighborhood was following her, and I walked up on him as he got out of his car and told him some stuff. I went beyond cussing him out.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, Mika, is there a difference between tattling, snitching, and telling?
Tattling is, I think, to me, is little mediocre stuff. Things that don't matter. But when it comes to telling, that can be between life and death. Like we've had rappers and famous entertainers that have gotten shot, and people are standing right there, and you can't tell me you didn't see anything. Yeah. And no one ever says anything because snitches get stitches. You're not supposed to say anything. It's the code. We don't say anything. We let it go. So, and like Ted said, if it's one of our family members, we're like, you better tell. You better say something. But if it's somebody else, it's girl, you better stay out of that. That's not none of my business.
Yeah.
But it can save people. And like, I'm just going to talk from an educator standpoint. School shootings. Just here in my... I think I texted Alicia and Ted that day because, babe, I was in that office hiding. My district had a shooting.
That's probably where you hurt your knee at.
Probably.
None of that desk.
I was in my office hiding. A shooter was outside of a school I was going to. They said, get y'all tails back to your offices and get down. You don't have to wear.
School was 30 miles away. Nigga ass.
You don't have to worry.
Just because it's in the same school district. You hear me?
You don't have to worry. Because I don't know where you coming. And the reason why he didn't get into the school is because kids told. They seen them. They told. So I don't think that's snitching. I think that's telling. So when you're telling, you're informing. And then when you're informing, we can do something about it.
All right, Nikki, anything to add on that, or that uncovered it? Is difference between tattling, snitching, and telling?
To that.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
All right. No new comments. Okay, Ben. Is it a term? Because isn't it just simply the term snitch that influences what people do or do in terms of telling the truth? If there was a different term associated with it, would it change what they did?
Possibly. Yeah, if it was a different term, it could change because it has such a negative connotation on it. When you hear snitch, it's just like, like you got something on you. I mean, it's like what that term is related to. So if it was something else, something more
informant.
Yeah.
Gary, you want to snitch? You an informant.
Gary, talk to me. What's the term? Is the terminology a factor? Can we call it something different? What is it?
Nah, the kids, they call it tattling. The gangsters call it snitching. The educated people call it informant.
Yeah,
it's all the same word. Everybody realizes what each one of those terms means. So I don't think the word that you use is gonna diminish what people view it as.
Right.
You sure about that? Because I'm gonna give you a thought process real quick. Disabled was okay. Now we gotta call them handicapped. Then that wasn't okay no more. And I may be giving the order wrong. Now we gotta call them handicapable. Now that don't work. Now we gotta call them a walking challenge. You get my point? I'm trying to be a little silly here. You can't even call a blind nigga blind no more. You gotta say he's visually challenged. So somebody out there think the terminology gonna make a difference.
But we
still can't see.
I'm not laughing.
I'm really just telling jokes for Gary because I like to see when he laugh uncontrollably. But somebody think terminology gonna make a difference.
Well, that's right. I mean, because back in the day, and I'm not trying to be funny. God knows I'm not. Retard was okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
See, Lily cannot.
Alicia.
I'm being dead serious.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then they move to slow. Then they move to mentally challenged. Like,
Wow.
I think terminology does matter.
Touch. You missed touch.
Yeah.
See now, bye. I'll see y'all.
That was way back. That might have came first, Gary.
I think it did come first.
Yeah.
I never heard touch.
Yes,
Yeah.
that did come
I
first.
ain't heard that either.
Special, all of that.
Special needs,
You're right.
so-
And now that's changed on what we say, or how we say it, because, so again, my point in all of that was, even in
Terminology.
the LGBTQ community, that's
Yes.
why we got 17
Yeah.
initials for it. Because
Yes.
somebody was offended by terminology. So some segment of the population, the terminology may make a difference. Anybody got anything to add on that?
But I think it's certain things where terminology makes a difference. Not all.
She started saying certain like a pastor, didn't she? Certain.
Excuse me, Lord. G Free had me on here speaking right.
That's when you trying to talk in your 9 to 5 voice or talking white like we say. She goes certain. She got caught slipping right there. Okay, so so it's not a terminology thing. So should we simply? Okay, so now I want to talk about some methods, that we can talk to our kids about trying to teach them. So should we teach our children simply to decide on a case-by-case basis?
Yes.
Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say it matters on the situation. Again, going back to what I was saying, if you're just being in everybody else's business and you want to tell on everybody, or you need to come home and tell me what everybody in your class did, but you didn't do your work, then that's a problem. No, I don't need to know all that. But if it was a certain situation where somebody was in harm's way,
yes,
seen someone get abused, or you heard, hey, this person's, like Mika was saying, you heard that this person's parent was to come up to the school, or it is a case by case basis. It's not just a blanketed no or yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Lily, case by case scenarios. That what should we be teaching them? What are some practical ways we can lay that down for?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Mika's saying, just explaining the why behind why it's important. If it's detrimental to you, if it's detrimental to the people around you, you should say something. But if it's just telling to tell because you feel that you want to tell on somebody that day, that's not necessary. But really just understanding the why behind it.
All right, Nikki, should we teach them on a case by case basis, and how do we go about doing that?
I actually agree with what Ben had said about case by case basis and just talking to them about the different scenarios and on how to handle the situation. But some kids, though, especially if they're in elementary school and stuff like that, and they just telling out just to be telling. But these older kids, I think they know better and know what they're doing. If they're, because most parents, if they old school parents, they gonna teach them what to do and what not to do prior to any of this stuff that's going on.
Okay. Gary.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I think it's a case by case situation, but if I think you have to lead with telling your kids always do what's right. In whatever scenario, do what's right. Again, I go back to say, if you're just telling just to be hating on somebody, that's different. Now you just talking. Now, like what Ben said, now you're just in somebody's business. But if it's not hurting anybody, or if it's not criminal or whatever, then that's different. But if it is criminal, somebody is getting hurt or has the potential to get hurt, you need to do what's right, and you need to bring it to the proper people's attention.
Right.
And Ted, just to add to the end of that, even if you need to explain to your kid, I'm gonna have your back, even if it gets you in trouble when you tell. I need you to still go ahead and say something if it's going to save or you make sure that everybody else is safe. Even if you get in trouble, I got you. But
you need to have that confidence that it's gonna be okay.
Exactly.
All right, and so as far as I'm concerned, what we need to realize as parents, though, is that as you're trying to calibrate, right, their meter on what's right, what's wrong, when I should tell, when I shouldn't. You need to be prepared for handling more scenarios early on, right? Because you're trying to calibrate for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means this laziness, and don't quit, don't keep running in here telling me stuff or whatever, right? You got to be prepared to listen to what they're telling you and calibrate. You got to teach. You got to use those situations as training time, right? Even young tigers, young bears, young animals, they practice on what they're going to be doing to survive. So that's what they got to do. If they in there fighting and tussling with their brothers and cousins and next door neighbors and stuff like that, that is their training ground where things are safe, that they got to be able to understand how to work through those kind of things. That's where their social development begins. And if you start setting a standard that's not one that you want them to keep, you got to be careful, because unfortunately, sometimes we are unwittingly putting our kids in a situation to where they grow up to be something we don't want them to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me answer this, Gary. Is the age of the child a factor in instructing them with regards to telling or not telling?
Yeah, I think everything is relevant, and definitely age. There are certain things that some kids are not going to be exposed to when they're small. But whatever is relevant in that kid's life at that time is what you have to. That's when you start to convey that message. So as a little kid, 3 or 4 years old, it's the tattletailing. Okay, well, why are you tattling? Break that down. Why are you telling me what you're telling me? I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit in being able to teach kids kind of a higher level of thinking at a younger age. And I think we can kind of progressively bring them along, and by having them, by telling them, giving them the why behind the why up front, or having them explain the why behind the why. Why are you telling me this? Exactly why are you telling me? And they can tell you, well, because he was hurting me. Okay, well, that's a valid reason. Was he hurting you? Why won't he change the channel on the TV?
I will say that
because he was in the bedroom first. Is that why he has control? That rule, whoever got there first is who's got control of the channel. Right. Is that why he won't change the channel? And so again, giving them progressively bringing them along, and then as things get more and more complicated in their life, you're able to unfold it, unpack it a little bit easier. But you give them the foundation early on. But you shouldn't have to be talking to a little kid about murder.
Right.
But as he gets older now, you should be able to establish guidelines, and as they get older, they can it's easily transferable.
I think Gary's right. I think we miss that window sometime, because if you try to wait till they're 10 and 11 to try to explain why you shouldn't tell and what's this, what's correct in this scenario, of course it's going to help. But like you said, at 3 and 4, tell me why.
Yeah. What
happened? Yeah. If you can't explain that to me, I can't help you. Go back in the room and go fight them. No, but gone.
And don't come out till you won.
Until you win.
All right, we got H-Rap B in the house from the Independent Media, just finishing up his show not too long ago. Says, good evening, family. What's up, H-Rap?
H-Rap.
And that's kind of why I think it's just so important even when you're picking your kids up from school. I think we get so consumed in our day of just, let me get the kids from school, let me get them on our schedule, that I always say, what happened at school today? Like, what happened? How did school go? Did anything funny happen or anything make you feel uncomfortable? That type of thing, because then they know, okay, I can talk about what happened with my day. And some kids it's just as simple as saying, what happened with your day? And they'll go down the list of what happened with their day. And you can kind of say, okay, well, tell me more about that. And you can kind of dig and find out more.
Yeah, because sometimes they'll say something unknowingly that is not good, but they don't even know yet, that it's not good,
Exactly.
So yeah,
I'm not
reminds me of the story. Nikki might have been out there at this time. This is when we were living on Lake, with Mama. It was just me, Mama, and Nikki. And so we was riding our bikes. We used to ride in the circle down there at Lakes in the cul-de-sac. And it sounds richer than it is, so don't trip. It's just still in the hood, okay? We riding our bikes around, and it was just kids out there. Marissa is in this story, Nikki.
Uh-huh.
So it was just kids out there riding a bike. And so one of the kids got off his bike, went on the side of the house, and he peed. Right? And so so somebody said, "Ooh, nigga, your piss thick." Right? He said that. At the time, this was my very first time hearing the term piss. I didn't know what that meant, right? But I'm still a comedian at heart, right? So the rest of the time we riding our bike, I'm riding around saying thick piss, thick piss. and Marissa walked outside. And when I was saying that, and all the other kids said, "Boy, be quiet, Marissa out there," because she was an adult. And so she's like, "Y'all, that's all right. He don't know what that is." You know, so I said all that to say that when you talk to your kids in that manner, sometimes they'll tell you stuff. They don't know it's a cuss word. They don't know it's wrong. They don't know. Believe it or not, especially since our culture and our community is doing a lot better in some scenarios, they are living some privileged, naive lives, right? Some of our kids are so naive, it ain't even funny.
Crab legs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know, we come from where we couldn't eat ribs and stuff like that at no cookout. Hell, you know, we get hot dogs and hamburgers. Now our kids eat whatever we gonna eat, you know.
Right.
So now this is what I want to do. I want to talk about some decision-making questions our children should ask themselves, right? And if y'all got any to add or you want to add something about a particular point, if it strikes a chord, don't hesitate to interrupt. So one of the things our kids should ask from a decision-making standpoint is, what are the consequences of not snitching, of not telling? You know, they got to run that through their meter. What would happen if I don't tell somebody?
Yeah.
There's really no big deal. Does it go away? You know, or is somebody going to be hurt? Is somebody, you know, they got to think that, right? The next thing is, some people have alluded to it. This is just a little bit more specific. Is anyone going to be hurt physically, monetarily, emotionally if I don't tell?
Yeah, that's
okay, there's another thing that they got to start working through. Here's a big one. Am I betraying trust by not snitching? And how big a part of that, how big a part of it should trust play, or the betrayal of trust play in our teaching? I submit to you that you probably need to tell them, if somebody that you consider a friend or that thinks that they have some trust that would be betrayed, they forfeit that if they do something so egregious that I got to tell you, you forfeited that trust. Yeah. Right. The reason why you can trust me and we friends and you think there's some trust to betray is because we share the same morals and values. And when you break that, then I got a right to break our trust. I got a right to betray whatever trust you thought. Any thoughts on that from anybody?
Absolutely. Tag, I want to add one. It's super, super minor, but it plays a huge part with our kids. Can I remain anonymous if I tell?
Yeah, anonymity is something big.
So if I say something, is anybody gonna know? I still want to be the cool kid, but I don't also want to be labeled as a snitch. So being able to be anonymous in those situations.
Yeah, because there ain't no witness protection plan in the 6th grade. There, your ass got to
come back to school the next day.
What you say, Gary?
You got to meet him at the bus stop.
Yeah, I can't protect you.
Go down.
Okay. But even in those school shootings, you had kids calling in or saying somebody has a gun. Please don't say I said anything. As you listen to kids talk, please don't say I said anything.
So when it comes to that betrayal thing, one of the things they got to think is, if so, do the consequences of telling outweigh the consequences of betrayal? So it may be a betrayal of trust, but are the consequences if I don't tell more severe than me losing you as a friend?
I think it's a learning. This is a learning point. This would be a learning point in kind of, again, what you teach your kids. You alluded to this. You said that once you do something that's not of our group's character, you stepped out of the character. So I no longer have to uphold my trust or my partnership with you. And so I think that's one of those things that kids just have to be taught, that everybody is not going to be your friend or going to be in your circle for your entire life. there are going to come points when your values don't align with their values.
Yeah.
And if their values, if they do something that hurts somebody and that's not in line with what your value is, then you have a right and an obligation. Again, that goes back to what I said earlier. You have that obligation to do what's right. Not only for your benefit or for the benefit of your clique, but for the benefit of everybody that's involved. So nobody gets hurt, nobody gets, and nobody falls victim to anything.
Right.
But again, it's the whole concept of the iron sharpens iron, because you can head that off. Maybe if you have that conversation before you even have to snitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, look, man, don't do that, because I don't want to be the one to have to tell on you. You don't. Don't do that.
I think that's the thing. A true friend wouldn't put you in a situation where you have to snitch on them. So
you don't have to be in that situation where, like, don't tell nobody.
Exactly.
But you're like, I was there. I mean, you told me, so you know.
All right, we got a few minutes left, but there's a couple other things I want to cover before we get out of here. So real quickly, another decision-making tool is there a greater good to be served by action of telling, or do I want this, or do I want to tell solely to get someone else in trouble, like Mika was doing, or to make myself look superior? So that's something they got to think about. And then another facet of this, especially in today's society where you got these large corporations like big tobacco, oil and gas, big pharma, and whistleblowers is a term that I came up with as I was thinking about this show, right? Just think about how many whistleblowers there are not. We hear about the very few that there are, but think about how many that there are not that know we are consuming something that's not healthy for us, and a company or corporation knowingly is putting it out there, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe because that no snitching, whatever kind of rule is stopping them from saying something. And something that's big in our community, that's probably big there, is fear. And I say that in all caps, because in our community, isn't it a fear-based silence? Isn't it a fear-based solidarity that we have? And so you not only do you got to teach your kids at an early age that you need to tell when it's an issue, but we have to work out real ways to make sure people are safe if they're going to give some information that could lead to the arrest of somebody. You got to make sure they're safe. And I'm not talking about WITSEC, witness protection plan. So last thing we'll cover, and then we'll give our final thoughts. And I'm going to start with you on that, Gary. When is snitching just bad, period? When is just telling it is just bad? You don't want to do it because it can be bad to do it. When is it just bad?
Man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can think of a situation where it is bad. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is the criminal element. They get the upper hand, and they keep the upper hand because nobody's willing to move them in a different direction. So I don't know. I would rather err to the side of snitching too much than not snitching at all.
That's good.
Ben, when is snitching just bad, period?
I mean, I guess I would say if you're in a situation where your family is in harm's way because in the result of you snitching. I mean, I think, though that may be a situation where I would be like, all right, what you really got to make a tough decision. Is it you or your family? Because I mean, we've seen situations like or heard of situations like that where though that type of thing could happen.
Nikki, when is snitching bad?
I think it's bad, like Ben was saying, when it comes to your family and whether how it's going to affect them. So I agree with that totally. I was thinking that's the main thing I think about is my family. I wouldn't care. I may not care necessarily about myself, but I would care more for my family to be in harm's way.
Mika, any scenarios where snitching is bad?
I saw this scenario on What Would You Do? Y'all know that show? In 2020. And this mother she had like 3 kids.
I love it.
And she didn't have money. So she stole to feed her kids. I don't know if I would tell in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be a snitch in that
What
situation.
that mean, Gary? You moaned over there.
Hey,
You moaned over there.
That's a tough one there.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, you
That's a
stealing
tough
lunch meat, nigga. I ain't stealing no. You know what I'm saying?
I'm stealing cold cuts.
He wasn't stealing cars. He was stealing bologna.
Yeah.
She's stealing food to feed her kids. In that situation, most people are going to turn away because or offer to pay.
That's
one or the other.
You know, I'm gonna go try to talk you out of it and say, hey, that's gonna put you in a worse situation.
Yeah.
Let me get something for you. You know, put that back. Let me get what you need to get. You know, Lily is when it's snitching, or the scenarios where snitching is just bad.
I think sometimes when you just involve yourself in something that don't have anything to do with you,
how about
like it just serves no purpose in you involving yourself in a mess and telling somebody. Some people do that just to get on somebody's good side. Like, look, see, I'm loyal. No, you're not. You just stirred the pot.
Yeah.
So I think it was one of those. I think it's one of those things where if it has nothing to do with you, nobody's going to be harmed from you, from your information, or with the information you're carrying back. You're just a bone collector at that point, and you just want to stir up some mess.
Yeah. Justin said, hell, I'm gonna help her get the food. I don't think he's talking about paying. I think he's talking about
you know what? Definitely
open that bag up a little bit wider.
Let me block you.
If he's saying
okay,
that.
so a couple of these times when snitching is just bad, period. Some of y'all have kind of mentioned it earlier. When you're just tattling for attention, you're tattling out of spite. You're tattling to feel more important or mature. That's to take a name saying you want to feel important by saying it, right? We all know those people who the information, they got all the information. They want to tell it every time they get it. It ain't serving no purpose. It's just gossip. It's just tea, right? When the tattler is unwilling or needs to learn how to problem solve. So sometimes if somebody coming and telling you stuff that's useless information, that's when it's bad. You need to teach them when it's more appropriate. And then, like I said, when it's more about I instead of you, us, they, or them, you know, those are times when it's not good, right? Okay, and then one last graphic I want to show. This is another little method that they can use to generally make decisions, right? And it's called a think method. And the think method is it true?
Is it helpful?
Is it helpful?
That's good.
Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? True, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind. So that's a good little method you can give your kids to kind of help work through the decision making of, do I need to be telling it? Because half the time somebody go come tell something, you don't even know if the shit is true or not. You done heard it from a joker who heard it from a joker who heard it from a joker.
Yeah, you got to do your research first before you start saying something else. You can look stupid.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my kids real quick, you better not be lying, because if I go up here and you making me look like a fool.
This fool said, do your research.
On that lie.
Wow.
Hey, make sure it's true or not.
All right, we're up to our time at final thoughts. And before I go there, let me just remind all of our viewers to stay tuned for Marriage is Real. They come up right after us. I'm gonna have to start getting their topics every week so I can even tell you what their topics are. But again, this is a podcast on BS3 Network that's on at 8:30 Central right after Queen3 King. And Damien and Jamie, you've seen them on here a few times, and they have some bomb information. They are one of my favorite couples in life, period. So tune in to Marriage is Real right after this. And now time for our final thoughts, and we're going to start with the season queen out in Van Augustine.
Why do you keep saying Van Augustine?
Because that's what your mama say.
Pick your camera up.
I just set up a little bit more. So
there you go.
But all I wanted to do is say I thank our guest Ben and
his name Gary.
Gary. Yeah, I was thinking. I knew his name was Gary, but I was thinking about something else in between. But because Gary was on before, I remember he was on here before, and with us. But I thank you guys both for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of our show today. And I just want to give you guys a shout out for just being who you are. And I appreciate you guys being on. And then also our guest, not only our guest, but our audience and listeners who listen to us every week. You guys can be doing anything other than this, but instead you choose to listen to us. And I appreciate that as well. And I want everybody to have a good rest of the week.
All right, quick comment. Keisha said snitching is bad when you do it for the reward money, but the wind in your face in Tahiti will make you feel better. All right, Mika, final thoughts.
Yeah, big shout out to Gary and Ben. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you guys. And I want to ask for forgiveness from Trey, Megan, and Tisha. I used to tell on them because they got on my nerve.
Wow.
So that was a snitch move. But I hope y'all are successful in life. I'll look you up on Facebook later. And when it comes to the topic, I think it's just knowing the why. I think our kids, we have to explain to our kids starting at a young age, laying that foundation, the why behind, telling or exposing different things and in different areas of their lives or whatever the case may be. And that open dialogue can expose anything that may be bad that they don't even know is bad. So I encourage letting them know the why in the open dialogue. Y'all like that?
Yeah.
I don't know what the snapping was about.
I don't know either.
Have your edges gotten more control during the show, or is it hard to tell?
It's hard to tell.
Okay, just checking on them. Because edges are people too. Shit.
Edges lives matter.
Wow.
Edges be edges.
Edges lives matter. Wow.
All right, man. All right.
Business started showing out, haven't he?
Yes.
Have been showing out
hanging
lately.
around dog too much. He know that it's safe out here in the water. So
Yeah.
That's
But I call me Jaws. I'll be out there with you, Ben.
all right, Lily, final thoughts.
A special shout out to Gary and Ben. Thank you for being on the show today. Our viewers, as always, y'all make the conversation fun. On the topic, I would just say that make it a safe space when you're explaining and opening the door of snitching. So when you are talking to your kids at a young age, make sure they feel safe in the space of knowing when to tell you and when it's appropriate. I think we shut down so much in the beginning that they shut down and they won't bring us what we need to know. So just be very careful when, making those teachable moments.
Yeah, there's a such thing as resting bitch face, and sometimes you have it for your kids too. Gary.
Oh, all right.
Hey, it's just the truth. What, you want me to lie to you and make it
fly to you? I asked you not to use that.
Oh my God.
He almost made it.
Been looking for a window this whole episode.
Hey, that's the only reason I did the show tonight. Gary, final thoughts, sir.
I want to say thank you all for inviting me back. Always a good time. This hour passes by so quickly. It's always a good time, good conversation. My final thought on this subject is, just teach your kids to do right.
Yeah,
teach your kids to do right. Teach them that not only are you responsible for setting things straight, but also teach them that, hey, there are other eyes other than mine, other than your teachers, or other than a police officer that is actually seeing what you're doing. So you put some boundaries around what you do in this world. So it just kind of helps to shape and mold and guide the kids a little bit more if we are laying those foundations down. And so that's the message that I want to get out to everybody tonight.
Yeah, they say freedom is an illusion. Ben.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for having me on. Great topic, Gary.
Your green screen stopped working during the middle of this shit. I don't know what happened.
He didn't pay his green screen.
It's a live show, man.
Green screen got refilled.
Gonna write me a note. I'm like, I can't talk to you, but anyway, I think we should change snitches get stitches to see something, say something, because there's so much stuff that happens and we don't say anything, and then we feel bad afterwards that we didn't do anything. Prime example is that George Floyd situation. The woman that was doing videotaping it, obviously that was helpful, obviously. But she said she felt bad that she didn't try to intervene or try to do something. So I think we swapped the terminology, and I think it was like we were talking about. I think that if you see something and it's bad and you see it affecting somebody, say something. But also, I think like we've been talking is with our kids, just give them those values, train them up. That's what the Bible say. Train them every step of the way in these different situations. You got to talk about it, or else if the situation comes up again, they may not know how to react or how to do it. And the other part is, just telling your kids, don't embarrass me up at that school. And these are my final.
Wow.
All right.
Again, to echo the sentiments of my regular co-host, the Queens, I appreciate y'all taking the time to join us. It always adds a level of energy and excitement, and it's wow. The content is fantastic, so we appreciate y'all. Now we, of course, there's a lot of comedy in what we do. There's a lot of humor in what we do, and sometimes it makes those pills a lot easier to swallow, right? But this is a life and death situation sometimes, right? It can be a life and death situation. So we have to take it seriously. The general rule is that if it doesn't help someone, tattling or snitching is not a satisfactory solution. We should teach our children that critical thinking skills decide when an action is correct or incorrect. This should serve them in all kinds of circumstances, not just snitching. A directive like never snitch or always snitch can have disastrous consequences. Kids need to speak up and tell an adult when someone is in danger or being hurt, such as when they witness physical or emotional bullying. This is yet another reason to do all we can to make sure our children feel comfortable talking to us as parents. And those are my final thoughts.
Whoop, whoop.
All right, that's it. That wraps up another episode of Queen3 and King. Join us next week when we have I'ma Stick Beside Him. Y'all know what it is. I'ma Stick Beside Him. And we have Nashville's own comedian extraordinaire, Mike James. Made his acquaintance several years ago at the Laugh Out Loud.
Who?
The same thing.
Laugh Out Loud Comedy Club. No, it's the Laugh Factory, I think is what it is. San Antonio, and again, kind of got reacquainted in LA a couple of weeks ago. So we'll have him on. This is a good dude. He has a new special out called Southern Comfort on the Dry Bar Comedy channel and app. So check that out to support him. Again, real cool brother. You'll see when he gets on, he'll fit in just like family, just like the guys that we had on today. So again, we appreciate your support at Queen3 and King. If you're watching via YouTube, please hit that like button, share, subscribe, and we appreciate you. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Queen3 and King.
Woo.
Bye.
Peace.
Are we smiling or what are we doing?
The Queen Bee has arrived.
You know. What's your out then? So I'm gonna start with both of y'all's hands right here.
Look for my stomach.